that finally we get to talk to each other. So, hey Dhvanil, I am Akash. Nice to finally meet you. We have known each other on Twitter for I don't know how long now. I have followed Dhvanil and all his work for a long time now. I don't know, like I've lost track of time there. I also funny story. I don't know what Dhwanil does for a living, to be honest. What I know is that he builds some really cool projects, which he keeps posting on Twitter. Like I think his pace of releasing projects is insane. Like he maybe whips up a project every like couple of weeks. Like I don't know what he does there and how he manages to do that, but some super cool stuff. So, anyways, what I'll do is I basically want Dhwanil to introduce himself. I am sure I won't do justice to what he does, explaining that to everyone. So, Dhwanil, over to you, man. Like, finally, super happy to be chatting with you, and super excited to be learning about GPT in general. So, go on, all yours.
Sure, nice. Thanks so much. That was a very nice introduction. I'm glad to be here. And yeah, you're right. Like we have known each other just on Twitter since a long time. The chance, I think just yesterday I spoke to you for the first time.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. And we recently learned that we live in the same building as well, in the same apartment.
Yeah.
It's like hardly 500 meters from each other. Uh, but yeah, so coming to your question, I, uh, I am a designer. I essentially was a designer. I studied design, and then I worked at Sprinkler. Then I worked at Playment. Like it was mostly around design. And then I realized that I have more fun if I'm usually trying out different things, playing around with development, playing around with sort of marketing, and not just siloed to only design. So what I did was then I quit, and since the last year, I quit last year, and I have been traveling around. I have so essentially there are three things I'm doing. I was doing essentially traveling, and that is something which like a full-time job doesn't allow you to do so much. So I visited a lot of countries with my girlfriend, had a lot of fun, and then at the same time I also do a little bit of design consultancy, product consultancy on the side, just so that I can keep paying my bills. Usually I need to work around like 2 3 days a week for it to sort of to not dwell into my savings and investments. And like the rest of the time, I usually work on these interesting side projects. I think on Twitter you should be able to find a lot of the things that I've done, and it's fun because over there I get to learn about development. Like since last year, I've been trying to get into shipping projects and building things, and I've learned a lot about front end development, back end development, and coming from just design, I think it's a very interesting thing. So yeah, I've so there are a couple of sites. Like one is for like book recommendation. There's one which was to build an automated expense management on top of Airtable. Then there was one which is like a rocket site, which lists all the rockets and their stats. And then there is
Yeah, I saw that. That was
something
pretty
which,
cool. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then there was this site which essentially filters and shows you only good news about
Yeah.
COVID. So yeah, it's a couple of things, but it's super exciting. I love that the freedom it gives me. Uh, I used to love the traveling bit as well, but because of COVID, I've not been able to go anywhere since 5 months, and it really
Yeah.
sucks. I hope things get back to normal super soon.
Same here, man. I think tell me about it. I work at a travel company, head out, and
Oh yeah,
we definitely want more people to head out. So I can totally feel you.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Hmm.
So cool, man. I mean, I think we'll get started with the whole agenda, right? If you basically wanna, so I mean, over the last entire week, right? Like it's been, Twitter has been filled with, people posting their cool projects that they have been building with GPT-3 in general, right? I saw you
Yeah.
built a crazy cool like a Figma UI generator. I saw Paras Chopra like build open source search engine of sorts, right? Like, how cool, right? Like, you don't need to Google and discover stuff anymore, because there is a bot that can like
Mm-hmm.
literally answer all your questions right then and there. So really
Yep.
cool, interesting stuff happening in the space, right? What's your take on like GPT? How did you get access to it? And like, I think that's the most important burning question. How did you get access to it? And why
Uh,
have we like mere mortals
no.
don't have access to this?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Can you see my screen? Like, is the
Yes,
sharing
yes,
thing
we can
on
see your
or
screen. Yes, yeah.
not yet? Okay. All right. Cool, awesome. So I think what I did was quietly I just like I just saw a bunch of demos around what people are building with this, and I just made like a big thread around like this was before I had access. So I just tweeted around what things you could do with GPT-3. I had no access. I mean, I've just like at this point I just saw some random demos, and then there were like I built out a couple of sort of just like mocks, right? So convert from wireframe to a finished product, or like SEO or headline writing, and then all these bunch of different things. I just sort of listed them, and then I sort of sent this in an email to OpenAI's CTO, Greg Brockman, and he sort of replied back a few hours from there, and that's how I got access.
Oh wow.
Needless to say, like that night, yeah, that night I stayed up the entire night. I was just like playing around with this, like putting in a lot of prompts, putting in a lot of trying out
Understandably,
what
right?
it can
Like
do, what it
I
cannot
would
do,
hate it
and
if I
all
had access and couldn't play with it the same night. So, but yeah, that's
exactly.
just such an amazing way of like getting access to stuff, right? Like ask for it. I think too few people do that. Like too few
Yeah.
people like ask for things, and we just want to fill up those invitation forms, and they keep waiting for our invites that never come
Yeah.
up. So yeah, I really like that you did that. Interesting.
But I think in general, it seems to me that they're pretty receptive to like if you would sort of have like a very solid use case where this sort of
Mm-hmm.
helps, or where this will sort of like it has like a very good case on how it sort of make your tool product idea
Mm-hmm.
better, then I think you should just go ahead and email them. I
Right.
think like yeah. Um, so that's how I got access to it. And in general, it's been like since then I've been playing around with it since I think almost 2 weeks now, 2 3 weeks now, and it's pretty interesting. Like it's probably the first NLP model or like AI API I've
Mm-hmm.
played around with, and it seemed to me that it's able to do a lot of interesting things without training it
Okay.
a lot. So they use this thing called. Should I? Let me actually show you the. Can you see my
Yes,
screen?
I can. Yeah.
Still, right? Yeah. Okay, perfect. So this is essentially the playground that they have to sort of try out things, try out the prompts and other things. And in general, it's pretty insane because it doesn't require a lot of training data. So what they have done is they have scraped a lot of sites and sort of comment forums and basically like a lot of
I
internet.
believe it's the
And
entire internet.
then they
It's
have
like trillions of documents from all across the internet, is what I hear.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Although it's I think they sort of have used internet archives or something
Okay.
because and it's trained on a model from like so it doesn't know like it's I don't know the exact date, but it was essentially pre-COVID. So if you try to feed in anything about coronavirus,
Haha.
COVID, or the
Right.
pandemic, it doesn't know that
Sure.
because it hasn't been taught
Sure.
that.
Yeah.
So that is also interesting. It's a point in time
Yeah.
intelligence
Yeah.
sort of. Uh, so yeah, but it so what it has is it's trained on all this, and it's like it understands the basic semantics of
Mm-hmm.
English, sentence structure, formation, and all that. And like from there, you can sort of very quickly train it to do like some very basic things that you
Okay.
want. They do have like a very detailed fine tuning API where you would give it a lot of data and then it would sort of tweak its parameters in such a way that it'll help you do that particular specific task. But I haven't played around with it. I think it's not in it's not available publicly,
Sure.
or even in beta. I think you need to apply for it. But I'll just show you like a little bit of how it works. So for example, what you will do is you will give it some tokens, or essentially like a prompt. So this is called prompt, and this act of sort of putting this in so that it generates output. So that is called priming. And so, for example, it learns from this context, and then it'll auto-generate things based on the above sort of text. So if I put here, let's say the conversation is, and I just press Shift Enter, and it essentially generates like a sentence, right? So the things in bold are essentially the things which I have sort of provided it as a prompt, and after that it generates this. So like we can just ask it whatever we want. What's your name? What do you do? Or
So this is
yeah,
largely like a
like
conversation
as you
bot
can
that
see,
is
it
available
understands.
right out of the box. Like you don't need to write a single line of code to get access to this, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the way this fits in the API is that you just put this as a query parameter, and you just put these sort of, I'll explain you what this is, but you just put these sort of filters, and sorry, and after that, it automatically sort of generates the other output. So it's a super simple, like just like simple API to sort of generate this text. So after that, like wait, like in general, I'm not being very creative with the questions, but you can like it's a very nice conversation. Plus, it also understands the context, right? So like it understands this is a question. It understands that it is AI, right? I can prompt it to behave like a
Right.
CEO. So if I prompt it that way, then it'll understand that it's a CEO. It needs to speak that way.
That's
But
interesting
yeah,
that like
it's super
CEOs speak a
interesting.
different language than us. Yeah.
Yeah, because it has like scraped a lot of
Yeah.
stuff off the internet. It probably would have like archives around like
Right.
COK testimonials or
Right.
like emails and stuff like that. And it'll just what it does is I think it assigns sort of like just wait one sec. Let's see. So it generates tokens from all these sort of sentences that you put in, and each token like that is how like a natural language processing model understands text, right? Uh, Token is sort of like a word. So like where is a token, do is a token, human is a token, and as you can see, like it generates tokens in the sequence which is a most likely sequence to occur. Like given this question, what is the most likely sequence? Or like it doesn't even understand the concept of question. It's more like given this sequence of tokens, what should be the next sequence of
Right.
tokens? It's simply
Right.
like as simple as that. And just because of that, you can sort of do like super interesting things. Like this can be a answer. It can actually also be another question. You can train an AI given a question, it asks better questions. It can be like a JSON. It can also be a JSON. It can be a React code. It can be uh, pretty much anything, right? Because anything like code, language, like anything boils down to
So
language in the
so
end.
what you're
Uh,
basically trying to say is because it has like gone through open source code base that is available on GitHub or some other places, it's like literally
yeah,
able to understand how a language is supposed to be written and it's able to generate that piece of code now. Is that how it works?
yeah,
Wow, that's mad.
yeah.
Okay.
It does. Yeah, actually, we can also see like an example of that. Uh, so so like for example, React component generator, right? So in general, if you like they have some basic prompts sort of around. So if I put this is like a line break. It'll understand that this is a line break. And here, I mean, I don't understand React, but I'm just trying to like make out. I think you put a variable name and then it generates
Yeah,
this
yeah,
JSX
yeah.
out of it, right? Three button component is this header. If I after this, if I just like put something like let's see. If I let's say, what do you want to do? Uh, I think like something simple and uh, blue button. Let's say what it. Okay, no shit. Sorry. I need to. Yeah. Wait.
You copy pasted this from where,
I need to
or is this something that got generated? I missed that part. Did you copy paste this from somewhere, the initial
no.
piece of code?
Yeah. Yeah. This
Okay,
is copy pasted.
okay.
This thing, like this thing is generated, right? So like if I like whatever I put in here, like let's say blue button, let's say uh, like green headline uh, component. So then like it'll generate the yeah, one sec. Let me. I'll also have to change this parameter. So this is essentially like how it'll stop. Like after, let's say after these three, like four colons, four semicolons, it'll understand that it needs to stop. Otherwise, it'll just keep on generating things
Okay,
from that point.
okay.
So yeah, here like we can say like dice rolling component. Let's see what it generates from this.
That is
So
insane.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I think
Although yeah,
like you
there do
still
seem
have
to
to.
be issues. Like it didn't like literally close the div tag. Oh, it was still working, is it? That's why it could not like
Yeah.
wrap up the. Okay,
Mhm.
interesting.
But yeah, you need to also sort of put in like how many sequence do you want. So I think it is able to. Let's see if it can also put the. Yeah, I think after this it goes around randomly for a bit. But as you can see, like till a certain degree, it is sort of like okay. And if you give it like some more examples, I think for now the prompt was simple, like header component, uh, and then there was like a three button component, right? So like if you think about it, it just understands the concept of a button, and it just understands a header component, so like h1 or whatever. And from there, it is able to sort of, if I say I want a dice rolling component, it's able to understand that dice is six,
Right,
has six faces.
right.
There's a class name, and each of these faces are this way, and all of that. Like there are some pretty cool examples around how like people have primed it to also generate like the working code around like let's say like rolling a dice, right? So you have like a variable and then you have a random function
Right.
which will generate random from like random integers from 1 to 6 and all that. So it can also output that like given it is primed properly. So that is pretty neat. And
That is
they
pretty
do.
mind-boggling, dude. Like let's answer the like the big question in the room, right? Like the big elephant. Do you feel threatened for your job? Like is
I,
GPT-3
I,
gonna take over front-end developers, or is it gonna take over design jobs? Or I heard it could write SQL queries. I heard it could like write Python code. So I'm like really wondering, how does it assist us, or does it kind of replace us? What are we seeing? What's ahead of us?
I think that that's a very good question, and I've been thinking about it a lot as well. Like largely because, like as knowledge workers, thought that our jobs are sort of secure, right? Like as developers or as designers, we thought that this is creative. It is something a machine
Right.
can do. But in the end, when you when you realize that like a lot of output that we provide, right? Like for example, for developers, it's code. For designers, it's like a design file, a Figma file. That is again nothing but code, and code is very similar to
Right.
language in the sense that it has some sort of semantics, some sort of rules, logic,
Mm-hmm.
etc. And if it like if you build a very good chatbot, you can in essence also build a very good sort of code generator.
Right.
Uh, so I think, like, to answer your question, I think the nature of our jobs will change, but like for example, we might move to like more higher order
Right.
things, right? Like instead of like writing components and everything, we might just like ask the system to like create this, do this, make this. It's similar to how, I mean, to a certain level, it's similar to how, like, for example, now if you want to create a website, we don't like go like host it. Like we don't have like a server
That's
somewhere. We
true.
just put it up
That's
on
true.
Netlify
Yeah. Yeah.
or something. So that sort of a work from our entire workflow, it's decoupled and it's
Yeah.
abstracted away. So I think to a certain degree it's that, but also it's not a very fair analogy because this is an intelligent system, right? It's not simply like a hosting provider. It's not simply like a plugin, right? It can, like, given like primed it, like if you prime it well, it can also ask you good questions. It can also sort of like do code reviews. It could probably also like write unit tests and other
Yeah.
things. I mean, it's very hard to sort of understand how this might change. But to a certain level, I think like our jobs will probably be more towards like guiding sort of how to build this, what to build. I think the how will probably become less important, and the whys will become more important because, like, you really need to like explain what you need to do. You really need to sort of uh, prime it, and essentially the questions become more important than the
Right, right,
answers.
right, right. It's the classic it's the classic developer thing, right? Like if you know the right question to ask, then you can get the right answer from Stack Overflow, or you can stumble upon the right Medium
Yeah,
article or somebody's personal blog, right? So I
exactly,
think it's going to be mostly an
exactly.
assistive technology more than a replacement technology, right? Is I mean largely uh, what I kind of think of GPT as. But yeah, anyways, so given that
Sure.
you have kind of played around with it, why don't you like walk us through some bits and pieces of GPT-3 from the
Sure.
OpenAI API playground perspective, right? Like the sidebar that we see over here,
Sure.
uh, and then
Okay.
or what we could do is, depending on how you want to take it forward, maybe you could also like give a demo of what you have built first, and then kind of force fit how GPT helped you solve this problem statement, as an example, right? So however way you want to take it forward.
Perfect. Let me just spend like a little bit of time
Yeah.
explaining this. Like they have like a few examples out of the box. So for example, there's like if you just prompt it with 4 lines of text that I want to build a language conversion thing, and then I can just say where am I, right? And uh, it'll sort of understand this. It'll change like it'll do translation on its own. So this is like sort of one example which just like sorry works out of the box. Then there is stuff around this, right? You have like a big sentence, and it has built like a table summarizing this thing. So it has built this. Now I just provided if I provided something which, yeah, so this is like a big line of text, but if I change it to like a new sort of structure, it'll also generate like a summarization table out of it. And all these examples sort of just like work out of the box. And there are a lot of parameters here. Essentially, temperature is something where you can make the output more random or more creative, more creative or more sort of deterministic. Then there are penalties for sort of not repeating verbatim what is provided as a prompt, so that you don't get the same output over and over again and stuff like that. And then there are sort of stop sequence, etc., so that it understands that the moment it encounters, let's say, like two new lines, then it needs to stop generating
Hmm.
more output. So this is there, and like I think you probably would have seen on Twitter, people have built like a dozens of interesting things out of it. One example which I built was something around like a automated Figma plugin. So what it does is it takes in like a, it takes in some text, and then it generates it generates a component which is like a representation of what the text is. So to give you an example, I'm just going to copy paste something here. So I've asked it to sort of generate a customer section. The heading is this, and the customers are New Relic, Facebook, Google, Twitter, and LinkedIn and Quora. And then I just get it to work. And what it'll do is it'll sort of understand that it'll put all these customers in an array. It'll put headline as customers and everything, and then it automatically generates this.
Wow.
So this
Okay.
uses yeah. So this actually it's not entirely
Mm-hmm.
GPT-3. It also uses a lot of Figma's plugins, and there's an API which gets all these
Okay.
items.
So I was wondering if like
So
the Open API was able to pull in these images as well for you, and that would have been like mind-boggling.
I think primed well it could, but what I'm doing is so like the prompt for this, I'll tell you it is this. All right. So I've asked it like generate a customer section. Heading is this. Customers are Stripe, Airtable, Razorpay, Glassdoor, and
Mm-hmm.
Notion. And the interesting thing here is I'll also zoom in a little bit. And interesting thing here is that I've so like I'm using
Mm-hmm.
Clearbits API to generate logos. So for example, if I put this, like if I put razorpay.com towards the end, it'll generate this logo, right?
Interesting. Okay.
And so I need the URLs, and I'm not asking the user to enter the URLs in the beginning. So it's funny because I'm just asked like I've just put in like all these websites here, all these startup names or company names here, and I've given them like an example of what the URL of Notion is. Like Notion doesn't have a
Yeah.
.com URL; it
Yeah.
has a
Yeah.
.so URL. Coda has a
Yeah.
.io URL, and I've just put in this. A lot of these sites have different URLs, and now whatever prompt I give, right, it'll generate like it'll like for example, if I put head out, then let me put Google, and then is there any like let me put Sentry because I think it also has a .io uh, domain. So there are actually look here. So there are six customers I've added here, right? But previously I used to only prime it over. Okay, actually I've given six examples, but whatever be the case, like it also understands the concept of array,
Hmm.
right? So if I give it like say like 10 comma separated customers, it will generate 10 sort of array with 10 items. So here, I think this is a good example because it understood that Sentry has a .io uh,
Hmm.
domain, right? Uh, and that is how I would get like a Sentry, like the logo for Sentry, which is like this is like again like super fascinating because like a previous way of doing this would be have something like have these comma separated things, write regex, and then find these words and then figure out if there are like .io or .com and then put that and do all that
So,
sort of
so
stuff,
help me
right?
understand.
Like
This is
how
Clearbits API at play, or this is Open API at play, which is kind of understanding that Sentry should generally resolve to Sentry.io. Like, who's doing the magic over here?
yeah, no, this is entirely
Wow.
OpenAI.
Okay.
OpenAI, yeah. So then what I do is I'll take this Sentry.io, I'll put this here, like obviously like on the in the plugin, but then I'll just put this
Hmm.
here and then
Sure.
it'll
Sure. Sure.
generate
Sure.
Sentry
Okay. Yeah.
logo, right? So this is some other API, but yeah, but like given this, I can probably also
But yeah,
parameter
what's
to
what's
this
what's kind of
directly.
interesting is that
Let
you were
me,
able to kind of use two APIs largely to give an input of
yeah,
Sentry and generate an output of Sentry's logo, right? Without having to go around
yeah,
like what's the domain name and how do I like what's the right asset for it and stuff like that,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I think it'll also be probably like you can also do this. Like right now, I'm just appending
Mm-hmm.
all this, right? So let's try this. I'm curious to see how this happens. Like I've essentially told it to append, let's say like .clearbit.com towards
Mm-hmm.
the of all these websites, right? And let us give only two prompts. And let's see, like if I ask it to generate something like this again with new companies, right? Let's say I'll put Airbnb, I'll put Twitter, uh, and let me just put like 3 this time, right? Like 4 this time. So it seems to me that it'll also understand that it has to append logo.clearbit.com and then the URL. So see, perfect.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is
So which
right out of the
is
box black
yeah,
magic.
yeah. It yeah. As you can see, it fucked up a little bit here. I think because yeah, so it didn't close the array. It probably
Yeah.
started the new
Yeah.
component on its own. But usually these kind of problems are fixed very easily by just giving it like 3 more
Ah,
examples.
okay.
Uh, because here I think I'll put like 6 uh, customers here and it generates like an array with 6 things. 6 again, it does 6. Now for the first time I'll put 4 and then it did understand.
Hmm.
So if I just give you one more example of 4, then it can probably work well with like 3 comma separated things,
Yeah.
5, 10, whatever. So I think that is also super neat. Like a lot of the sort of logic that you have to sort of write yourself, you can just abstract it away by like giving it examples.
Right, right, right. That's interesting though, right? So, I mean, your work substantially reduces down to uh, generating enough examples of all use cases possible, right? Like kind of
Yeah.
generating a repository of most commonly used use cases in your own context, similar to how we
Yep.
would like design a design system, right? Like, or a storybook kind of a model, right? Wherein you would try and give as many examples as possible to the end consumer for all
Hmm.
components possible, and then it's literally like a storybook being given as an input and React components churning out as an output, right? I wonder if
Yep.
like somebody could build a storybook plugin on top of it to kind of take that as an input and generate React components out of it. That would be super cool.
I think yeah, that is neat. Like in essence, I think it's cool that like a lot of our job is now or probably will be like finding good examples and then priming the machine to
Yeah,
do
that's
that.
true.
It's like being like a teacher, right? Like you give like you give like simple examples and then it learns on its
Yeah.
own. Like you give and it's interesting because you probably need to only give it like let's say multiplication tables of 1 to 9
Mm-hmm.
and then it might be able to sort of generate tables of 8 and 12 and
Yeah.
whatever 13, 15.
Yeah.
And like you still don't know for sure does it understand multiplication as a concept
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
not. You can just
Yeah.
look at the output.
That's true. That's true.
Which is pretty cool. But and also like just to sum this up, I think so the way this works, I just want to explain a little bit because it seems pretty
Hmm.
magical, but in reality, it's like the place where it is using OpenAI, it's mostly to sort of it's actually only to generate the structured sort of data from whatever text box input I provide. There is actually like all the other handling is done through like predefined components which I've made. So what happens is I've made this component which is like a navbar component which is light, and then there is a navbar component which is dark, and it has like all these items, right? So what it'll do is like actually let me also show you like the data structure for this. So like this is the data structure for navbar. Yeah, this is the data structure for navbar. Um, which I've defined previously. So essentially, the component is navbar, mode is light, and then there is like logo name, logo website. And this is actually not true. The logo will just be like a square, right? And then the CTA type and the navbar sort of item. So what it'll do is OpenAI will generate this from the text I give, and based on sort of if it is dark or light or square or whatever. So if it is dark, it'll sort of take this component and it'll copy it, it'll reproduce it, and then it'll change the navbar items based on here. So what it'll do is it'll go here, it'll change pricing, it'll change it to pricing, it'll change this to sort of documents and so on. So in general, it replaces pre-existing components that I've made, right? So I've made this as a component in 2 modes, and then it'll sort of fill out the data in this. Uh, so in essence, it doesn't understand the concept of let's say like it just understands like what is a pricing component, what is a description. It doesn't understand like visual hierarchy. It doesn't understand that the blue is a good color. It doesn't understand the fonts. Although I suspect that given even enough examples, it can learn that
I
on its
wonder
own.
if
So there are a
I
few.
wonder if you could give examples of, let's say, Bootstrap, Tailwind UI, or Ant design, platforms like Material Design, right? Platforms which have exhaustively documented really well how a component translates into a UI representation, right? Because they not only like have the code samples over there, code snippets over there, but also like the representation of how the UI is going to look like, right? I'm not too sure if it can like
Exactly.
read through the image and understand, you know, but yeah, that doesn't make sense. Like it can't literally like decipher image, right? Like this piece of code can generate this type of a UI. I'm sure it doesn't understand so much, or does it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a language model, right? It's not a vision
Yeah,
computer
yeah,
vision
yeah,
model. So it doesn't understand
yeah.
images. But in any case, I think for like designers and developers, the output, like this entire output, it's nothing but let me show you like how it happens in Figma.
So yeah,
Um,
that's a piece I was interested in knowing more about. So how does Figma kind of generate? Because I'm not a designer, I don't know too much about this. But how do you kind of generate a design out of a JSON config?
Yeah, so I think Figma is pretty
Mm-hmm.
neat. So what it does, like for every, actually, like just looked into making Figma plugins like last week, right? So I might be a little wrong here and there, but what it does is like every piece of thing here, right? Like on the right, you can see like like they're calling this a
Mm-hmm.
node, right? So this is a frame node, this is a group node, this is a text node, this is a rectangle node
Right.
because it's a rectangle, and all of them have let's say like this is a text node and it has some id, it has like a name, it has visibility, it has stroke and all of this. So essentially all this ui elements that you see here, right, like its position and
Mm-hmm.
all of that, it uh, creates like a structure for this. And like the apis are super simple. So what I'll do is I'll just say create a text node, and then put the name as this,
Right.
and then put a stroke as this, put a color as this, put the font as this, and then it'll just do on its own. I can show you the code for that, but it's like in the end, it just does that. It's super simple. Um,
Sure. So ideally, what you're trying to say is that given a configuration, Figma as a tool will be able to represent that in a Figma file and show you visually how it will look, because it's all vector based
exactly.
as
Yeah.
well. I'm assuming, right? Figma is all vector based.
Yeah, it is an entirely
Yeah.
sort of vector-based tool, and it uses like it has very good sort of APIs and libraries as
Mm-hmm.
APIs as well. So essentially, it has like actually, let me open it. I think it's a pretty interesting thing. It's probably one of the most insane things I've sort of seen lately. Uh, I do not know how do I. Okay, yeah, wait, I understand. It's such a mess. I think the problem with doing all these sort of side projects and trying all these things is that uh, like you always get lost. But yeah, so this is the Figma sort of plugin, and if you look at the TypeScript code here, right? So what it is essentially doing is it has these functions where I can just replace text. I put in the field name, I put in the value. It'll find the node whose name is the text field and the type is text, and then you
Sure. Sure.
just
Sure. Sure.
replace the
Makes sense. All right.
characters
All
with
right.
value. So essentially, you
Yeah.
just do all of that, and that's how I replace each and every one of these sort of tiny things. I
Yeah.
replace
Does
the
Figma
icon, I
also come with
replace
a
all of
like
that,
a
and
client-side library to be able to easily manipulate the data structure, or do you have to understand the tree structure yourself and write transformations on top of it?
I think you would have to
Okay.
understand the tree structure. But to be very frank, I don't think
Okay.
it's difficult at all. They do like somebody has actually made like a
Mm-hmm.
Figma.js library,
Sure.
but I haven't used it. Although I would like recommend, like it's super simple. I didn't even know how to use
Mm-hmm.
TypeScript, but like I just dug into it, and it's
Mm-hmm.
very easy. So, for example, if you look at here, right, like the Nava generator, it'll if the data logo name is square, then it'll delete the circle node. If it is circle, then it'll delete
Hmm.
the square node. It'll replace CTA with whatever has come in my data. And for index 1 to 5, so because I don't know how many navbar items you
Right.
have put, right? So for all of them, it'll replace those things. And if it doesn't exist, then it'll delete. As simple as that.
Hmm.
So if navbar, like if I've in this example, I've just given it like let's say like 3 inputs, right? So it'll delete the
Yeah.
two others.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as simple. It's pretty neat, and I think like even though it seems that it doesn't understand all these concepts, it's like once you understand it, you realize that it's not going to replace
Hmm.
designers as we know it, because it doesn't understand visual
Yeah.
hierarchy, doesn't understand this needs to be on the left, this needs to be on the right, and all those sort of things. But like a lot of like boring grunt work, it
True.
can
True.
very
True.
easily do.
Yeah.
Like you can in a sense write like a like put in like headouts entire sort of design library and like storybook, and then you can put in like a lot of PRDs, and then you can essentially just like write a PRD and it generates like a headout-ish looking
Yeah.
website or an app. Like maybe like far off, like a little far in the future, but it's a good place to
Hmm.
start exploring, right? But yeah.
That sounds good. That sounds good. So I mean, sure. So can we like go back to the video that you had posted on Twitter? That had far.
Sure, sure, sure.
Let's go through that, and maybe uh, we will try and see what missing pieces
Sure,
exist
sure.
in that video that we haven't covered yet.
So yeah, actually, I think it's better to do the video because
Yeah,
it's
that's true as
fast
well.
forwarded, so we don't have to wait for a lot of things. So yeah, so as you can see, I've put in like the navbar items and it auto generated this. Then the next is a hero section. So it'll like the interesting thing is that it puts in hero section and like the heading, and then it automatically generated like an description out
Right.
of it, which was capture more and increase sales with
which
fully
which
customized
which was a
website and
function of
checkout.
what, like what was the input for it to be able to generate this? Was it just like customer analytics
To
software?
No, to be very honest, I'll show you what is the input. Yeah, the input was exactly that. And the prompt would be for that would be something like this. Prompt would be data to enrich your online
Mm-hmm.
business. Okay. And if you look at this, I've provided this in the heading here, right? As in output, it'll come. And then the description is we will provide all types of data, whatever. There's some description which I've written based on
Right.
this input. And if I just give it like a little more examples around that, like there was this another prompt which I gave it, which was this super fast CRM. And then the thing is get to know your audience and find new ways to market to them using customer
Mm-hmm.
relationship management tool, which is super cool because how does it
Yeah.
know CRM is customer relationship
Yeah.
manager? How does it know that you need to market
Yeah.
them, blah blah blah.
So can we
I mean, so this,
exactly what
like
you
to be
were
very honest,
doing
this
in the
is what this
playground?
is.
Can we see like how would you do that using the OpenAI API? And maybe if you can go through some code snippets that you have written to generate uh, that piece of code.
Sure, sure. That's a good point. So this is the backend for the API in general, and what I would do is I would just like pass, like I would pass these. Actually, this is a little complicated code, but in general, what I would do is I would have like a list of prompts, right? So this is, let's say, the prompt for navbar, right? So it is essentially nothing but this big thing, like whatever, however I would like prompt it. Like this is essentially the
So
prompt for
so
the
is
entire
your workflow
hero
like
section.
you would do stuff in the playground and then copy paste those prompts in code, or how would you go about it?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I did it that way. I think like over time we'll
Mm-hmm.
figure out a better way. There'll be
Mm-hmm.
better tools to do this. Maybe you can just do it from like as a visual
Yeah. Yeah.
code plugin or something. But in general, like this is what, right? You give it
Mm-hmm.
examples, and then you have some sort of parameters. And what I would do is I would take this prompt and I would sort of combine whatever the user input is This is the Figma API ka
Okay.
backend, right? So what happens is as soon as I press the magic button or whatever, the
Yeah.
button on the front end, it sends an API request here. And what it will do is it will find the description and then it'll sort of append it to the parameters. So it'll put prompt and then component
Okay.
description in this, and it'll make an API request
Okay.
to OpenAI, and OpenAI will send a response, and the response will be in like
Mm-hmm.
data.choices.txt. And I will take this response, and it usually looks like something like this. So, for example, for customers, it identifies this as customers. It'll put in heading, description, name, website, and there's some another nifty thing which is sort of hard coded, but it essentially generates like taken this neuralink.com. It'll find the Clearbit logo and it'll put the logo as in buffer. This is, I think, like a limitation of like Figma only sort of can make images if given in like a Unit 8 format,
Yeah, yeah,
Uint 8
yeah.
format or something.
So why?
So essentially,
Just curious,
there's
why
something I'm doing
is
there.
OpenAI API doing this on our behalf? Like, why is it not giving us links to the Clearbit API? And why is it like literally downloading that image and injecting that as a buffer?
No, no, this is not
Okay.
what OpenAI is doing. Actually, this
All
is
right.
what I am
Cool.
doing. So I have like yeah. So there is this little function which is yeah.
Understood.
So there's this customer images function which I've written, which essentially takes
Yeah,
in
makes
all these
sense.
things.
Makes
It
sense. Yeah,
pushes,
makes
like it
sense.
adds
Sure. Sure.
logo.clearbit.com, and then it gets the
Yeah.
array buffer, and then it
Yeah.
appends it here. So yeah, so those are things it wouldn't probably be
Hmm.
able to do, right? Like given Quora.com, and if I give it an array buffer of Quora.com ka PNG image, I doubt if I give it Google, it won't be
That's
able to
true.
generate
Yeah,
Google
yeah,
at all.
it's not supposed to be solved by them. Yeah.
Exactly. So there are limitations here and there, but I think you can build interesting things if you club in like OpenAI APIs with like a lot of existing plugins and sort of tools, products, platforms, etc. Like you can build like an interesting Slack bot. You can build like headline generator, content generation. You can build like super interesting like regex generation. Like for developers, I think it'll be like it can be like a very smart boilerplate, right? Like instead of like having like a same thing coming up over and over again, I can say I want like a boilerplate thing with like a carousel and a website and like a single page application and blah blah blah, and it might generate
Right.
that for you
Right.
with, let's say, with you can say like I want Lodash and like 2 3 other sort of npm packages, and it automatically adds that for you. So I think it can do those sort of things pretty well. So a lot of like the low level work can very well be abstracted away.
That's true. That's true. That's true. That sounds fairly interesting. Um, Also because like we don't need to do the dirty work anymore, and uh, your work can now be much higher order work, right? Wherein uh, I'm sure it
Mm-hmm.
can like because again it's whatever it's able to generate is based off some input which already exists. You cannot definitely generate
Yep.
new logics and new uh, like you can't build end-to-end apps is my base assumption, right? Sure, you can like maybe build a to-do app right out of the box
Yep.
because a to-do app has enough manifestations online in terms of open source code, in terms of open source
Mm-hmm.
code base, right? But yeah, like you wouldn't find uh, much higher order work available in the open source domain. But what I'm guessing is
Makes sense.
if it's able to understand a lot more code and understand that this piece of code means, let's say, a Jira like application, or this piece of code means a YouTube like application, and if I'm
Yeah.
still having a tough time wrapping my head around like how much how much of it would be like provided by the developer himself while he's because as you mentioned, like
Yeah.
a lot of this has to be an input to the actual program for it to generate a decent output, right? So uh,
Yeah.
yeah, it still remains to be seen like how do you source that input. Do you write that kind of in boilerplate input yourself for it to
Mm-hmm.
do other grunt work for you? I'm not sure if I'm making sense right now, but yeah, kind of.
No, no, I think it makes sense. Like the entire question now comes down to like how do
Hmm.
you prime it? well, and how do you sort of give good
What
input, good
if you could
data
like
for
give
it
a
to sort
brief
of
idea about it?
generate these
What
things?
have you seen happening in the wild out there, right? How are people priming it? How are people supplying it the raw data, or the input data that it requires to help solve their problems? So, for example, Paras Chopra built this open source search engine, right? Which, given an input, will be able to
Yeah,
not only
yeah.
answer your question right then and there in the same window, but also lead you to the right source of where it picked that information from. How do you think something like that would
Mhm.
be solved, or if you had to solve that, like how do you go about it?
So I think that's a good point, and I'm just speculating because I haven't like I don't remember very well that demo. Plus, also like how he has like I obviously don't know how he has done it. But I think it seems to me that I could probably provide a prompt. Let's say like if I want to search,
Because in that case it's like literally
let's say
searching through
large.
its entire archive, right, without any decent prompt. Like there is no prompt in that case, right? It's a generic question that you are asking directly to the OpenAI data set that it has, and it's kind of able to dig in the right URL and the right information out of it, right? So there is no so I'm not sure what prompt is literally helping you do over here, given all its training data is already with it, right? So
Yeah. Actually, I'm like I think I'm not too sure about like about
mhm.
how it gets the link. But let's see if we can do this here. So what I'm giving it like for a prompt, I'm giving it let's
Mhm.
say like this thing, and for another prompt, like I'll try to sort of prompt it in a couple of ways. Let's try to build like a specific thing for now, right? EPL 2018. This is Manchester City. Okay. Actually, like the only thing I'm confused
Okay.
about is the link because apart from that, it seems to be perfect. Uh, 1. Now let's try if I switch the
Yeah,
context
that's
to
gonna be
this.
funny. Let's see.
Um, so I mean, I'm really not sure if it'll work or not, but let's just see.
Wow.
Nice.
Wow, that's insane.
So so I think see, like it's easy to build. Like I mean, I'm not sure if they won actually. The interesting thing,
I,
actually,
I
they
think I
didn't.
think we entered
Whoa,
2018 and not
nice.
2017 in the prompt, right? Oh, we did enter 2017. Yeah.
No, I
Okay.
put nice. But in 2018, they
I'm
won
not
or
sure.
what?
I'm not sure. Let's check it out. Yeah, yeah. So it
Yeah,
like
28.
okay, that's super
Yeah,
weird.
nice. But I think it got confused because it got a link, and us
Yeah,
link may it seems
yeah,
to me that
yeah,
Chennai won. But yeah, but like as you can see, like this is given just 2 prompts, right?
yeah,
If I give it like 3, 4
yeah.
more, I think it can work well for like a like for a use case of this. Let's see if we try it again, what happens. Yeah, it's just it doesn't
Yeah,
understand.
I saw a demo which was
This
like,
is good.
how many eyes does the sun have, and it answered two, because, well, yeah, there is no wrong answer with OpenAPI. It always wants to answer something, and it
Yep,
doesn't know if something can't be answered.
yep. But so like I think like this is how probably you might build like a specific sort of search
Hmm.
engine on top of this, right? To train it with enough answer pairs for cricket or like football, it might be able to work well. Let's say like if I put like what is the height of like
Mm-hmm.
Cristiano Ronaldo or something, it might be able to
Right.
give like a good answer. Uh,
Yeah, I'm sure
so
it all boils down to
so,
like figuring out
so
the
I
right input data set, and that's something that can be easily scraped from the internet as well.
exactly.
Like if you know the right source to look it up, like maybe like a write a nice
Yeah.
scraper over Wikipedia, and you will have your data set for a specific targeted like keyword you are looking for.
Mhm.
So yeah, that kind of
Yep.
makes
Uh,
sense.
uh, uh, Another thing to note here is that they have like a limit because of the way this is
Mm-hmm.
implemented. It seems to me that they have a limit on the maximum sort of input that you can put. So I can't train it on more than like 2,000 or 1,000 tokens or 1,000 words, right? If
Interesting.
I do this, that then it says yeah. So this is like the token limit for the model is approximately 1,000 words.
Wow. Okay.
So this does create like some challenges, right? Because let's say like you can't train it on Python ka library or
Yeah.
something because it would have like a lot of more words and you can't give so many examples. So I think that
Isn't that
requires a
that
lot of
feels slightly weird, right? Because for a AI tool, wouldn't you want the input set to be as rich as possible for you to be able to uh, like use that effectively to generate better answers? Why would you want to restrict how many tokens can be supplied to it?
because I think this is not the training phase. Like in the training phase, I think it helps if you give it large number of examples.
Sure.
But while it is running, right, it has like an. So I was watching some computer file
Mm-hmm.
videos around this because, like, to be honest, I have zero background in
Yeah.
NLP. I do not understand how these things
Mm-hmm.
work at a conceptual level. But like at a mathematical or at a very low level.
Right.
But it seems to me that they have these concept of attention, which is like given like a lot of like if I give it let's say like if there's a chat thing going on, right? I can sort of go around with this conversation, and then it needs to understand that if I ask this question again, let's say like if I ask, oh shit, I forgot, who are you again?
Mm-hmm.
It needs to answer that I'm an AI, right? So for that, it needs to understand what it spoke before, or it needs to understand the context, and that is something which is actually very computationally intensive.
Hmm.
Like learned from that video. So there is a limit on how much input you can give because if you give a lot of input, it needs to have that much, and it's sort of like short-term memory
Right.
of sorts.
Right.
Uh, and I think that is one thing where you have that limit. But you can also what you can probably do is you can sort of fine tune the model, giving it like 5 GBs of examples of a chatbot built around let's say fun conversations
Mm-hmm.
or something like that. And then it like the outputs it gives will be sort of more suited for that because it would have changed the model ka underlying sort of like weights and things
Right.
to
Let's
to
let's
generate
let's let's
more
do something
outputs like
fun.
that.
That sounded fun. Can we like given this has scraped the internet and it would have the repository of all the funny jokes, lying around on the internet. Let's see if we can like put in our mood, uh, and if possible, let's try solving it if possible. Can we like say that
Sure.
I am in so and so mood, or I want to send a joke to my girlfriend, to my wife, to my or I want to recite a funny story to my daughter, and let's see if it can quickly generate a short story for me to like, yeah, like quickly recite it to my daughter, right? So can it like go to that extent in the sense that it's like actually aware of the question being asked, and the subject it's supposed to be presented to, and then generate an appropriate response basis data that already exists on the internet. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But I mean, so for
How
example,
hard is it gonna be, like, let's say?
so for this, like you'll have to let's say give it like some prompts, right? Unicorn poems,
Right.
or let's say poems on what like butterflies. Uh, so you would have to sort of like feed in some
Right.
examples because I mean I can't generate like a poem
Yep.
on its
Yep.
own. So let's give this
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you would basically give
at
an
least
input of
as a
what is a
first
funny
step.
poem according to you, and
Exactly.
yeah, sure.
And then I would probably, I mean,
That's gotta be funny because the question now in this case is unicorns, but the answer is for butterflies. So
oh, yeah,
you can make it do funny things as well. Yeah.
yeah. Um,
Wow. Okay, not bad.
This is, yeah, it's sort of neat. So yeah, I mean, so I didn't tell it to stop. So like since it is text prediction, right? It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't understand concept of
Right,
question and an answer.
right,
It'll keep on generating questions even, right?
right.
So like it understands talking about butterflies, and like if you notice the spelling of butterfly is wrong, even then it works. Then there's
Yeah,
unicorn. It generated sun, and then he thought that I would probably talk about
yeah,
sky.
yeah.
So it did that, and I think the
So
questions are
does
pretty
it
good,
like
right? Like
keep
look at
taking
this.
its own output as an input for the subsequent output, or yeah? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think let's see if it is. And if you look at this, it's not like it's not like
Hmm.
dicta word to
Mm-hmm.
word available on internet. So it
Yeah.
did create some of it. Like, uh, I mean, like maybe like some phrases it would have seen somewhere, but yeah. So yeah, that is interesting, and I think you can probably like it's all
Right.
about priming is what I've realized. It's more about questions and
Right.
how do you
I
tell
in
it
fact
what to
had a
do.
question like a few
Um,
weeks back that I put up on Twitter. And the question was, if I basically wanted to launch this a very hacky sort of a website that could generate better, like an assimilation of all the data that exists around product reviews online, right? So people write about, let's say, an iPhone on their personal blogs. It gets written on some famous websites. People, real human beings, like add comments around that product on Amazon, on Flipkart, and on websites across the world, right? And that input data set is fairly consistent in terms of the sources you need to visit to extract that data, right? So for example, if I'm, let's say, interested in creating a new electronic gadgets review website, and I don't want to write those blogs by hand, now I can literally make this tool generate a pretty crazy blog, I'm guessing, by making it read through all the blogs that exist and the reviews that exist in history, right? And kind of generate a new essay for me in general, right? I think that'd be a pretty crazy data set to give an input to as well, because that will be very varied in terms of the data that has been written.
yeah.
And how is doesn't that kind of a problem statement become really simple with this tool now?
It does. Although I think, yeah, I mean you're right. Like it because it is really good at generating like real sounding sort of sentences, phrases, words. Like you're right. Like if trained on like a lot of uh like blog posts or like blog outlines or let's say like product reviews or uh product critiques, right? Like you have onboarding critique websites, email copy websites, etc., etc. So you can probably feed that in, and then it'll generate sort of things similar to that given an output. So let's say like you say, I want a feedback on, um, let's say like a washing machine or something. Then like it wouldn't be accurate to this in the sense that it wouldn't like understand that like this is the actual machine. It wouldn't use that and all that, but it'll still sound like this washing machine has good this clothes are good. It doesn't have a good weight load, etc., etc. So I think
Will it will
it
it
can do
also
that.
retain the information that was given to it as a prompt, or will it always like only use it as a, I mean, will it only base off its
I think
text of that uh, in terms of grammar and language, or will it also like use some of those anecdotes or some of the features? For example, an iPhone is 6-inch tall, whatever, right? Will it be able to retain that
uh,
data set, or will it lose that in interpretation?
I mean, I'm not sure. To be very honest, like I don't
Hmm.
know how these models work, so
Hmm.
I can't say for sure. But I mean, like it might also know that iPhone is 6 inches
Mm-hmm.
sort of in screen based on the other things that it has scraped off the internet, right? It
Hmm.
might have
Yeah.
scraped
Yeah. Yeah.
Apple's website, so it might
Yeah.
already know that. And like given the input, I think it might still understand that. It might
Right.
retain
Right.
that as well. Although I'm not sure like till what level
Hmm.
does it retain. I think you should really check out, like, go to YouTube, and like for Computer File,
Mm-hmm.
it's a YouTube channel. So they explain all these sort of computer things, right? Like
Okay.
internet things, computer things. Like, so they have an explanation on GPT-2, GPT-3, and like they break down these things into very like simple concepts, and they help you
Interesting.
understand what's going on,
Sure.
how does the model work and everything. So they have an example around like a story on like it was given like a prompt on that, I'm a scientist in some country in Bolivia, and I saw a unicorn which was
Mm-hmm.
speaking English. And given that prompt, it generated like a realistic press
Wow.
statement,
Okay.
right? There was a scientist who studied in University of La Paz, and blah blah blah. And then like three paragraphs down, it brought in the concept of like an English speaking unicorn. So it understood that it was about the
Interesting.
unicorn and all that. So I think that is pretty cool. You should watch it. YouTube Computer File. I think you can put in
Yeah.
like GPT-3, GPT-2, and those are keywords. Yeah.
That sounds insane. So, do you wanna like go through some more code if you wish, or what we could do is we could
Sure.
essentially like try and create something by hand, right? Like a hands-on exercise wherein it could be a simple text-based generator, a heading generator, or based off some keywords that you enter, right?
Sure.
If I'm guessing that should be a fairly simple exercise given how uh, crazy easy it looks
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
Do you want to run through that? If you have some piece of code, yeah.
Sure. Sure. Let's do that. I think what I'll do is I'm usually sort of comfortable in yeah, putting this out. So I'm comfortable using Vue.js. Um, so one sec. So like, let me create like a Vue file, and this is running on my local host anyway. Uh, like fair disclosure, I've written this. Like I was working on some other project on this, and I have uh, like done this before. I've made the designs for this thing. So, but I think it'll be interesting to just run through like this entire thing on how you would sort of do it in a using OpenAI. Or like there's one other super interesting talk around software 1.0 and software 2.0. If you also Google uh, like Andrew Karpathy, he's a person who works at Tesla. I think he's the chief. I don't know the exact designation, but he looks after all their computer vision and AI systems. So he talks about how sort of development in like a new world, right? In a world where there is good general AI available, how that would essentially look like. And like it's super interesting because he says that, for example, in like a software 1.0, which is essentially this, right? I'm writing Vue.js, I'm writing sort of components and logic and sort
Right.
of things around this, right? But in like a new world, it would probably be more of an conversation. It'll be more of giving examples and then it learning from it. And giving examples may like the quality of examples is critical. The diversity of example,
Right.
edge cases become super important.
Yeah.
So all these things, and the quality, quantity, and the diversity. So those are the three things. And if given enough that, it can sort of generate logic on its own. And it's super interesting because that means like different debugging tools. That means different optimization tools.
Yeah.
Like optimization, to, like you probably don't need to refactor things. You probably just need to give it better data.
Right.
You yeah, you don't need to, like, if you want to optimize it, like if you want to make it more efficient for neural networks, I think if you probably remove half of the layers, it becomes 50% faster.
Hmm.
I'm not, but that's what like somebody said on that video. But yeah, so that is super simple, right? If you have to optimize, let's say like some other website, right? Or let's say some other sort of complicated parser that you have written, it you would probably scratch your head so much, right? Because you would find like each function, how much time does it take?
Yeah.
Can you do here? And versus for like a software 2.0 thing, you can just like remove half the layers.
Yeah.
uh,
That's gonna be insane,
Perfect.
because then you're
So
not
let
gonna
me.
worry so much about the code that you wrote, and you're not gonna be attached so much to that piece of code because you didn't actually write it by hand. So you'll be far more willing to, trash the output as it is more often than not, and in favor of supplying it better inputs so that the quality of output could be better, right? And unless you kind of are happy with that final output, it's only then you can run your debugging tools on top of it. It's only then you can review that code once and for all and just push it to production, right? So I'm guessing it's going to be
Exactly.
far more research oriented than development oriented going forward, right? Like bringing in those, it's going to be
Yeah.
more about like, like each company might have its own set of standard coding practices, their own linting practices and so on and so forth. And this tool can just keep generating code bases that data forever, right? And you can just keep improving that source data
Yeah.
set. Yeah.
How do I? Do you know how do I hide this?
Yeah, there should be a view. Yeah, you should be able to go to view, and there should be a way to say hide the minimap. Oh, it's not minimap? That's crazy. What is this tool?
The
Oh, it's your
terminal.
terminal. Okay,
This is
okay,
Visual
yeah.
Studio. This
It's
is edit pan show panel.
gone. Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Perfect. All right. So I think, like in the interest of time, I'll probably like copy paste like
Yeah.
bits and pieces of things I've written. Plus, also, I don't want to bore you with writing like sort of like playing around trial and error with
Yeah, makes
CSS and all
sense.
that. But so I think let us go to heading. So this is like a blank thing that we have written. Like I'm using tailwind.css. Tailwind is like a new sort of upcoming thing where essentially instead of writing CSS, you mostly add classes which do like a singular thing which a
Yeah,
CSS does. So BG blue would add like a blue
yeah.
background, and H full would put like a full heading and sort of stuff like that, right? So let me keep, and there are some places where, I mean, you can technically go do away with writing CSS everywhere, but you can. Oh, one sec.
You seem to be missing a SAS loader.
But I mean, I don't know why it works in the. Is it because of this? Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Cannot find module head. Okay. Let me see. If I. Hmm. Oh, okay. Wait. One sec. Do you think it's because I? Oh. Ah. Okay. Cool. Sorry.
I haven't worked so much with Vue, very little. Uh, so yeah, sorry, can't help you too much with Vue code.
No, no, anyway, I understand. I think I like since Tailwind doesn't require a lot of CSS,
Yeah.
the style element, I think you wouldn't have to sort of put in scoped and
Okay.
SCSS and all of that. So in general, I'm just sort of adding this random like sort of CSS, and I've added this background here. And uske baad, what I'll do is let me just in the beginning just like create all these components and things to add here. And uske baad, we will add the other stuff around sort of doing the
Mm-hmm.
OpenAI prompt and sort of command J. Or, hmm. Cool. So then let me add So unexpected A tag. Where is the fuck is A tag?
Yeah, I can't find one. In the interest of time, also, if you have already written code for this, then maybe we can walk through that code instead of you writing it right away, right now.
Yeah.
We can do
So
that as well.
cool. You can do that. All right. So this
So, do you
is
want to like walk through
yeah.
what the application will look like first, and then we can go to the code?
Sure, perfect. So what happens is, like the HTML might be a little sort of overwhelming, but there's like a text area which takes an input. All right, and then there is a button which runs a function called sort of spell run, and the button ka sort of text is generate heading, and then there's like a cube component which I wrote, which is like a loading component, and then there is like a for loop. Like once you have the choices are essentially the results which the OpenAI
Sure.
API will give us. So it'll run like a for loop. It'll add all these things. It'll add like a p tag with choices, the text of the choices, and so there is a button which generates more variations. So essentially, our input is going to be yeah, our input is going to be text, and the output is going to be heading, right? So like once we run this, and then like the two sort of API calls are in general like spell run. It's essentially creating that OpenAI prompt. Uh, Doing the API request, and then putting choices as the response, and then just like hiding the sort of cube,
Mm-hmm.
loading cube, and everything. And for variations, I'm doing the exact same thing, but in this case, I'm appending choices to what choices already had, and with the new responses. And if you look here, n equal to 5, this means that it'll generate like 5 variations of the
Okay. Okay. And
uh,
these parameters are nothing but the same parameters we saw in the playground.
yeah, this is
Sure.
exactly the same. So prompt is
Yeah.
essentially this, uh,
Yeah.
like this big thing. I what so what in this case, what I've done is I've found like some interesting websites just which have like interesting prompts, and I've used them to sort of generate
Sure.
descriptions. All right. So like based on your prompt, it can literally be anything. In this case, it is actually it is not text to headline. It is like more than that. It's more like you given a headline, it generates like description. So given this, it'll generate some like given XYZ for
Mm-hmm.
remote work, it'll generate so that the team can get more work done no
Mm-hmm.
matter where you are. So it's not really headline. I'll just replace this with all right, cool. Uh, so let's say like I put something like travel anywhere easily. Um, so this like let's say this is the headline of your website, and you're confused about what is the description that you want to write. So you can just like do this. It'll make that API request, and then it'll sort of give you some interesting ideas around what you can do. The interesting thing here is that like the prompt has mostly been trained on sort of project management tools and sort of like payment gateways and stuff like that. So that's why it doesn't work very well for
Okay. Okay.
travel
Okay. Okay.
sort of thing, as you
Let's
can see,
let's
right?
pick up a use case which
It
it has
gives
been
like a
trained
little
for.
output. Sure. So let's say like easy to use CRM. Um, yeah. So this is perfect, right?
Yeah.
So retire, easy to use CRM, take a quick tour, manage sales funnel, uh, design the work the way
Yeah.
you want. I can create more examples as well.
No, that's insane. That's pretty amazing because the entire
Yeah,
layer of
it is.
learning, uh, figuring out what NLP is, what ML is, what AI is, dealing with those, input data sets was something that prevented a lot of people from venturing into NLP and AI and stuff like that in general, right? Through the years, it has been mostly restricted to researchers doing PhD who have like shown active interest in such technologies. And I think this tool will lead to far more adoption of uh, such technologies, and more insane, more amazing solutions, products will start coming out now. What do you think about it?
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's like extremely spot
Yeah.
on. Because like I like have zero understanding of
Same
how these
here.
things
Yeah.
work. Like to be honest, like the
Yeah.
NLP and everything. But because it just converts it into like a simple sort of prompt
Yeah.
answer sort of paradigm, which I understand, which is
Yeah.
super simple. Everyone understands. Anyone understands that you're given a question, it can give an answer. Given something, it can generate more
Yeah.
variations of that thing. So and like because you do that and you wrap it around like a simple API,
Yeah.
I don't know how expensive it's going to be because they haven't released the
Yeah.
pricing yet. But it seems to me that like over time we will definitely have more like Google would probably release something
Yeah.
like this, Amazon would release something like this. So you would have like more
Yeah.
sort of AI as an API, AI as a
True. True.
service,
True.
sort of things
Yeah.
coming up. Yeah.
And it also seems to be kind of the right time for it, right? Like there is so much content on the internet, it's fairly hard to consume without a tool like
Yeah.
Google, right? So and that too is like fairly cumbersome to kind of go through, because the person
Hmm.
responsible for finding the answer is you. Over here, the person responsible for finding the answer is a machine, which of course can do a better job than a human, right? More often than not, of course,
Yeah.
if you are deep dive into a research, then of course you can do your own research. But for most of the common use cases, where the answer is, let's say, a Stack Overflow answer away, in that case, that
Hmm.
notorious unnecessary dirty work of like googling the same thing, and clicking on the first Stack Overflow link to grab the first answer out of it, can now literally be automated via this
Yeah.
tool. So that's something I'm truly excited about, right? And uh, well, I mean, uh, nothing better than making your current job redundant so that you can do better things with your time. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So
That I mean that is true. And also like it's I think it's a very good tool to also sort of like automate parts of your thing of your like day-to-day
right.
things that you don't like, right? So for example, I was trying to see like I would reply to emails, right? And I don't particularly enjoy that. I don't enjoy like changing the grammar to make it more formal or
Hmm.
informal
Yeah.
or fun or not. And like all these sort of things. So I fed in like a bunch of like my personal data, right? Like some of my emails, like how I
Right.
respond to texts and all of that. And then like given bullet points, it can generate like nice
Yeah.
sounding email, uh, which
Yeah.
sounds like me. So it's sort of like an AI which
Yeah.
understands context of Dhwanil, of myself, and then it
Yeah.
does things according to that. Like I can like because and it goes across things, right? Because like for example, for whatever project I do, I might have my component library, I might have my
Yeah.
boilerplate code, I might have like some things which I use. So I can train it on stuff like that, and it can generate like output and variations and sort of autocomplete. It's very interesting because in the end it's
Yeah.
autocomplete, right? It's auto-completing
Yeah.
parts of your work, of your like
Yeah.
of whatever you want to do.
That's insane. All right, cool. So we are also like mostly wrapping up. Any tips that you would
Awesome.
want to given like you very recently played with the whole tool, any tips for people who are receiving their API keys now, or I haven't received my API key yet. Once I do, well, one thing I'm going to definitely do is like
Hmm.
ping like you did, and hopefully like hope that arrives sooner than later. But for somebody who is receiving their API key now, what the best resource or the best way to get the ground moving?
I think it's like they do have like a like if you look at their API documentation, there's like a
Okay.
Slack group and everything. So like I'm pretty sure you would get like a lot of interesting ideas and sort of
Mm-hmm.
people who are working on this. You would get like a lot of interesting insights from this. Like from that thing, like even the community would be super helpful. So like on Twitter, you would see a lot of examples and it's like to be very honest it's just super simple and that also makes it like a little more interesting, right? Because then what is the
Yeah.
differentiator, right? If I can create something like this, if I can create like a simple plugin
Yeah.
conversion thing in like 2 3 days, pretty much
Yeah.
anyone in the world can do that. And there would be sort of teams and companies with much better sort of resources, much
Yeah.
more budget, much more example and the
True.
raw data to throw at it. So I think it also becomes interesting to understand like what is it that
Yeah.
you're trying to build and what is the moat or what is the going to be the differentiator. So I think that is there. And in general, like as I said, like the questions or like the why or like what you want to do, it's way more
True. True.
important than
True.
how. So and like once you play around with this, you will realize that because execution is
Mm-hmm.
pretty easy, right? Because
Yeah.
it's just an API and a response and a bunch of prompts. And you can do that to create like
Yeah.
SQL queries, regex parsers, code
Yeah.
generator, design generator. You can create video templates and stuff. So like it's more important to understand like why you want to do what you want to
That's
do rather
true. That's
than
true. That's
how
true.
you want to do
That's a very
because
interesting
how is
point.
super
True.
simple.
True.
Yeah.
All right, man. Do send me any links that you have for, if there is like an active Slack group or an active Discord group
Yeah.
or anything that, or if you want to do that right now, I can even put that up in the chat window so that people who are watching it later
Uh,
can have access to it.
I Sure. So the
Okay.
Slack group is private. Like it's only for people who have access to that. But I can sort of share. I think there was there are like a lot of GPT-3. Um, just wait one second. I'm
No
searching for
worries.
it
Yeah.
in another sort of uh, video. Thing. So there is this very interesting sort of tweet thread around how it works. I'll message you on
Yeah.
Skype. So there is this one, uh, which explains that what is going on, how does it work, and other things. It also has like a lot of interesting examples of things that people have
Mm-hmm.
built on top of it. So like I think in general, like if you just like
Yeah. Yeah.
search GPT-3
I'm sure. I'm
on
sure.
Twitter
Yeah.
and just like sort by top videos,
I'm sure.
you'll find a lot of interesting things. Uh, I think so. Yeah, this is also like this was
Mm-hmm.
the channel I was talking about. They have like a lot of interesting GPT-3 things. So there are like 20-minute talks, like GPT-2. This is like a 1 year ago thing, and this is like the next,
Right.
like the latest thing. Then there is this. So like all these like top 5 videos would be like super interesting to watch and understand
Sure.
what's going on. There is OpenAI's paper as well, which is like a slightly more technical sort of yeah. So I think this is their paper, which is like a bit more technical and explains the details on how they have trained
Sure.
it and other things. Plus, like what is a few shot learning and everything. So I think I'll
Sure.
drop this link as well, and I'll drop this thing as well. Um, yeah. But I think yeah, that probably would be a good starting point. Plus, I think like Twitter in general has been like super
Yeah.
blown up by this, so like you'd find like tons of people and
Yeah. Yeah.
examples around this.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you so much, Dhwanil. It was like I finally have some headway into like once I receive my API key, what am I going to do with it? Well, I still haven't. I still don't know the answer to what am I going to do with it, but yeah, good pointers on like how to approach building something with it, and I'm sure a lot of people will find it super helpful. So thank you so much for your like Saturday noon. Um what we are going to do is like we're going to wrap up. We're going to wrap
Sure,
up now. It's 1:30 anyways, and yeah. All
sure,
right,
sure.
awesome, man. Thank you so much for your time. Have a good weekend. I'll see you. Bye
All
bye.
right. Thanks, thanks,
Yeah, bye.
thanks for having me. Bye.